Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today on Go Ahead Tell Me. Today's guest is Cody Vieira. Cody is here to talk about her career working for her local government and to share some tips on how you can get more politically involved within your own communities. Cody, can you share with us a little bit about your career and the steps you've taken to get where you are today?
Yeah, I've kind of always been interested in politics. I mean, I remember having debates with my elementary school friends about politics, but I never really saw my involvement kind of like increasing beyond that. When I was, applying to college and like thinking about what I wanted to do, like it never really crossed my mind that I would work in politics. I kind of came into it when I went to UCSC. At the time, I was studying economics, and I was kind of just focused on that and like trying to figure out like some career with that. But I had like a friend that got me kind of involved with volunteering on a local campaign in the 2012 election. And so I did that for a bit, just like basic phone calls, going door to door, talking to voters, just on a volunteer basis for a little bit, because, we were only there from like September on for the election. But that kind of ended, and I didn't really kind of do anything with that for a while. But kind of like through my first year at UCSC, I was kind of thinking more about like what I wanted to do, and I realized I didn't really enjoy what I was learning at the time. And so I started taking some political science classes. Didn't change my major or anything at the time, and I just like realized I was more interested in that. But I was just like, what am I doing? Just like learning about political theory, like what is going on with this? And then in one of my classes, someone came to recruit interns for a campaign. And it was, that was my sophomore year, and it was for the campaign that I had volunteered on in 2012, which was for Congressman Scott Peters. And I was like, oh, like an internship, that's something that I could kind of see, maybe like explore a career path or something like that. And at the same time as that, I started going to my first meetings of the College Democrats at UCSC, and kind of just like seeing what they did. And they had like a rally prior to that was for a special election for mayor down here. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, getting to have like politicians come and like care about listening to students and stuff. So at that point, I kind of just dove straight in. Like I worked on a campaign as an intern, and I like joined the board of that club. And just ever since then, I've pretty much been working on like campaigns and doing stuff within the Democratic Party. It was just like a really great thing because I got to see, like the impact that I could have, on an election. And the one I interned on in 2014 was like one of the closest races in the whole country at the time. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So I really felt like, I was kind of making a difference. And that was just like a really cool experience. I actually met then Vice President Joe Biden there at a rally for the guy we were working for.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So that was really cool.
That's awesome.
I was like, you know what? I gave this a shot and I liked it, and I'm just gonna keep going with it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Did you end up changing your major, or did you graduate with?
I did. I changed to political science, with specifically a concentration in American politics. And then, but I still took a little while to get there. I took some like random psychology classes, I did some business classes. I ended up doing a minor in business and then another minor in urban studies and marketing, which actually
Oh my
ended up
goodness.
being really useful because a lot of the political science classes I took were, kind of more theoretical. But I did take one that was like how to win or lose an election that was taught by my professor, Nathan Fletcher, who's now, he was a prior elected official. He's an elected official again now. He's on the board of supervisors for San Diego County.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so took some of those that were a little more hands-on, but I especially felt with the urban planning classes, those kind of give you, more of a hands-on idea of like how especially like local government works, because it is a lot of that kind of like land use planning and like things like that. So it's a little less theory than poli-sci. So
Yeah, I can see that being totally helpful with what you're doing now.
yeah, definitely.
And so what is your position now? Like what did you use, what your experience was now? Like how do you use that?
Yeah, right now I am the deputy chief of staff to San Diego Council President Pro Tem Stephen Whitburn. He's the council
Mm.
member in San Diego representing District 3, which is like kind of downtown, and the surrounding areas. So I actually felt like it was pretty useful, like especially going back to like the stuff I learned in urban planning.
Hmm.
A lot of it was more relevant, so I'm glad that I like learned more of that too, and that probably helped me because I mostly came from more of like a campaign and like organizing and finance background before I came into this. So
Right.
yeah.
And so right now you're in like local government.
Mhm.
Is that kind of where your like passion is for it, or do you want to like go further than just local government? Do you know at this point?
I mean, for me, whenever people kind of ask me what my plans are for the future, I mean, someone asked me that like a year or two ago. I guess it was like 2 years ago. They're like, what's your like 5-year plan or whatever? And I'm like, I have no idea. And if you had asked me this like a year ago, if I thought that I would be in this position right now, absolutely not. So I've kind of, while I definitely see like the point of kind of like making plans and goals and things like that, especially with politics. First of all, you never know if the person you're working for is going to win or lose. You never
Right.
know how elections are going to turn out, especially when I was working on, prior to this I was working on Congressman Peters' congressional campaign. I was actually his campaign manager in 2020. And
Mm.
those elections are every 2 years, right? So how do you make a 5-year
Yeah.
plan when the election, there's like multiple elections since then? So yeah, I mean, uh, I don't want to say, this is where I think I'm going to be for like the rest of my life. I'm definitely
Right.
interested in local, state, and federal issues and politics.
Hmm.
But I definitely, I think going into this, I probably had a little less knowledge of local, kind of how local government works. So that was part of why I was really interested in taking this on, to kind of like get a better idea of how that works. And I've definitely learned a lot since then. And I also
Hmm.
think, especially for people, a lot of folks are kind of disenchanted a bit with politics. You usually just see what's going on at the federal level, and you see a lot of, oh, they're not doing anything, or what people are doing, they don't feel like it's directly impacting their lives. But when you get
Hmm.
to local politics, it's very direct. And
Hmm.
you can see, oh, like, is the council approving, this project that's going to be built or developed in my neighborhood? Are they going to build a trolley stop here? Are they going to, change the bus service? And things that kind of you can easily see have a pretty direct impact on people's lives. So I think that's been the most like kind of interesting thing for me when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say is I feel like we're surrounded by like federal politics and government. Like we're even like in school, that's what we learned about. And it's so interesting because as I've gotten older, I've been like, wait, what is affecting my community right now?
Yeah.
And we always hear about it, but we don't learn about it. I feel like it's like, oh, you should participate in your local like elections and things like that. But then there's not much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really interesting to hear that, like, or not that I didn't realize this before, but that it is so important to focus on your local government as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so with like going off of that, we, like I said, we're always told like, oh, there's ways to make your voices heard and ways to get involved. But do you have any advice on like ways that we actually can get involved
Mm-hmm.
or have our voices heard?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also just echo what you said, because I don't think we learned anything about like state or local government in school. Like, I don't remember learning anything. I barely even learned that in college. I learned it just through getting involved with like, college Democrats and all of that stuff kind of separately. So
yeah, I was gonna say I think we were in AP Gov together,
like,
and we didn't learn anything.
We learned about the
local
Federalist Papers, and that's it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so in terms of getting involved and having your voice heard, there are a lot of different ways you can do that. Obviously, the number one way we talk about is voting, right? And that's something that I've always like stressed to people. I ran at UCSD when I was a student still. I ran a part of the student government, which was the Student Organized Voter Access Committee, where we kind of worked on getting students registered to vote every year, and like doing engagement activities and like educational stuff for students, especially when it came to like local stuff. We would do like forums with candidates for local office and things like that to kind of get some of that information out to students. But on top of that, there are a lot of things you can, especially with your local elected officials at any level, your city council, county board of supervisors, also your elected reps for the state legislature, for Congress. So one of the things that I tell people is like, you can actually talk to and meet with your elected officials and their staff. That's something that we do in my current position. And that's something I know that elected officials do all the time. Even your member of Congress, they're not always in DC. When they're not in DC, sometimes people think that they're not working, but they have what's called district work periods, where they basically just do all of that, where they meet with constituents, talk to them about issues, and you can lobby your elected officials. And a lot of the times, it's helpful. You might know something about something happening in your community that their staff just aren't familiar with, or you might have a good idea about a potential project or something that they are interested in pursuing. So that's something you can always do, giving input to your elected officials. I can't promise they'll always be able to meet with you, because they have busy lives, but definitely that's something a lot of groups, advocacy groups, just groups of regular people do all the time, and I think that's very beneficial.
Yeah.
And then also something that a lot of people do know is you can do what's called public comments. So during every city council meeting, at least I'm pretty sure it's across the board, but obviously I'm most familiar with the city of San Diego. When they have council meetings, when they have committee meetings, you can give what's called public comment. So either about something that's on the agenda for the day, or they also do what's called non-agenda public comment, where you can kind of just speak your mind about an issue that's happening in your community, or something that that they're going to talk about at some point, and you have their attention for a minute or two when you go and do that. So I think that's also very helpful. Before, I was working on with the city council, I did public comment before about issues, and it's especially helpful if you have kind of like a unique perspective or idea to contribute as well. So that's another big thing. And people definitely pay attention and listen to those things. And it gets recorded. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I actually didn't really know about that. So that's very helpful for, I think, hopefully for a lot of people listening, because I feel like you said, it's not advertised, or it's not really like you have to search for it, it feels like.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of people, if they knew more about that, they would maybe feel like they had more of an opportunity to be heard by their elected officials. And it's there, it's just a matter of getting the word out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What has been, or what was your experience with like the most recent presidential election? Like, how does that kind of trickle down to what you do?
Yeah. So in 2020, I was serving as campaign manager for Congressman Scott Peters. And there's always, it's always a little hard because there is a focus on the presidential race, and it's like, well, hey, we have a bunch of other things that we need you to pay attention to and vote on as well. It's definitely helpful because a lot of folks who, for whatever reason may not, have the opportunity to kind of really pay attention to a lot of the other like down ballot races, do turn out often just to vote for president. So we always see a higher turnout in presidential election years every 4 years. So that's always a good thing for us. But, we do have to kind of like, okay, so, vote for president, but make sure you keep going down the ballot. You vote for your Congress member, you vote for your state legislative members, and all of your local government too. There's also a lot more money going to presidential races. So it's a bit harder for, campaigns, especially really small ones, to raise funds. So there's always that. But it was also a good opportunity for us on our campaign. We always kind of try to help other campaigns. So for instance, myself and a lot of folks with our office or our campaign would help with a lot of the U.S. Senate races. So we were calling into, North Carolina, like pretty much like all the states that the Democrats were trying to, win seats in. We were making calls for other congressional candidates that were in kind of more of the top toss-up seats. And helping a lot of the local candidates as well. Definitely COVID put quite a complication in there for us, because one of the biggest things you learn with campaigning is the most effective way to reach voters is going door to door. Because, it's kind of easier to have a conversation with someone face to face and, to feel like you're not just talking to a robot or a telemarketer or something. So usually that's kind of like one of the biggest things. And we lost that in 2020. So we're like, okay. And it's the same with campaigns, across the country. We kind of had to regroup and figure out, how we were going to get to voters and talk to them. One of the good sides of that was there was this, kind of increased interest in and focus on improving voting accessibility. And, when we did vote by mail, for everyone, that kind of upped it a bit. And we were like, this might actually be really helpful, because a lot of times, one of the big things that we would always do in campaigns is not just, persuade voters, but make sure people turn out to vote. And try to get folks who weren't signed up to vote by mail to sign up to vote by mail. And a lot of times you hear, oh no, like I always go in person. I just like going, the day of election. But it's like, you never know what's going to happen. Election day is one day a
Mm-hmm.
year, and things can come up. So we always try to encourage folks to vote early. And
Mm-hmm.
that the fact that we had more of an opportunity to do that with early voting this past time was a really good thing, I think. Aside from the other, it's a silver lining there, but
Yeah. Exactly. It's interesting. It does feel like there were like it was such a horrible time, but there was small things like that positive things did come
Mhm.
out of it. And I feel like that was one of them. Like I was kind of one of those people. I was like, "Ah, I just want to go in person. Like it's an experience type of
Mhm.
thing."
Yeah.
And then I realized like that part doesn't matter. Like let's just get it done and like have my voice heard in this way,
Mhm.
regardless of if it's doing it at home at my kitchen table or going to the booth, you know.
Yeah.
So
And I
I did think the mail-in thing was really a good thing for this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I almost forgot to mention, but I did have to go in person this year because my boyfriend passed his citizenship test on election day. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to go register you to vote now. And I took him to the Registrar of Voters so he could do his conditional registration. And then once they, just confirmed that he was eligible, then it was counted. And he got his confirmation in the mail, a bit after the election. So that was like definitely an experience that was
Yeah, that's
unexpected, but
incredible. Like all on the same day. How
I
amazing.
know. And we weren't sure if that was going to happen because they weren't really doing the regular like swearing in ceremonies and stuff that they normally do. But he just, came out of his interview and was like, well, they just swore me in. So I'm like,
That's amazing. Where is he from?
Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What a fun day that must have been.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. I had to, we were already nearby, but I was like, well, I want to take you to the Registrar of Voters, but I'm wearing my partisan attire that's not allowed there. So we had to drive
Oh,
home so I
no.
could change first and then bring him back to do his registration and vote. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I love that. So he was able, you can just go and get registered that same day and vote that same
Yeah,
day.
so it's called conditional registration, and you can actually do it at your polling place, but because he was, we had this kind of situation where he was a little nervous. Uh, it's a long story, but he was basically originally told by the person that swore him in that it was too late for him to register to vote, and I was like,
Mm.
excuse me, that is not true. So I was like, we're going to the Registrar of Voters just to make sure. And yeah, they were like, no, yeah, you can. And I knew we have conditional registration, which basically just means, because they do take some time to just make sure that you're eligible. So you go in and you
Mhm.
do that, and then you can do like a provisional ballot. And once they confirm that you're eligible, then they count your vote.
It's a good thing to know. I feel like that you can go register and vote that same day. I don't know if that's something a lot of people are unaware of, but I feel like I mean, I've definitely heard that before, but it's nice to hear it like that you had that experience and you were able to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, I mean, just from the fact, he was told otherwise, I was like, wow, like that is not true at all. Like
Yeah.
I was like, I was, and he was kind of nervous, but I was like, look, I promise you, I do this for my job, like is explain people, how to vote and how to, register to vote, from being on campaigns to when I was doing it at UCSD. So I was like, was kind of questioning myself a little bit, but I called the Registrar of Voters and they confirmed, and then I drove him there and I was like, look, we're gonna do this.
Oh, I wonder how many people get turned down like that and not realize that that's not true.
I know, I was kind of thinking about that too.
Yeah,
So
that's a scary thought.
it is. So Yeah.
Well, I'm glad he got his vote in though. That's really awesome. That day will live in his mind, I'm sure, forever. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And at first, I was like, can I post about this on social media? He was like, why? And I was like, because it's so cool. Like, and I was like, trust me, like people are gonna like be so inspired by this. And like I posted, everyone's like, this is so beautiful. Like, I was like, we need this because I don't know how today's gonna go on election night, and I need something to like inspire me.
Yeah,
Like,
some positivity too. I bet people
yes.
loved that. Like that's there's not very many people who can say that in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
During your career, are there any like changes that you've been a part of that you're really proud of, whether it be like legislation or just like being a part of like a something you found really important to be a part of?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to say. I haven't had as much experience like on the legislative side, but some of the things like when I was at UCSC, I was involved with a lot of kind of like student activism, both like on the side of we did, protests and things in terms of trying to prevent tuition hikes. And we also did, lobbying through the UC Student Association. Just trying to talk to our elected officials about, student issues. And we got a lot of things passed that we were promoting. So that was, that's something that, again, I think a lot of people don't realize you have the opportunity to do and really make a difference in. But I also will
Mm-hmm.
say, just in terms of like what I'm kind of most proud of is being a part of the effort, especially in San Diego, to get a lot more young people involved politically.
Mm-hmm.
Since I kind of started when I was at UCSC, like one of my big goals has been to like recruit more people, both into doing political work. Like, I spent a lot of the work that I've done on campaigns, recruiting high school and college interns and volunteers, and kind of like working with them and like helping them, kind of not necessarily take the same path as me, but like similarly, get more involved in politics, and also getting folks more involved in the Democratic Party. I remember when
Mm-hmm.
I first kind of started attending meetings, there weren't a lot of people in powerful positions that, looked like us. And right now, that's completely changed. I'm on the board of the San Diego County Democratic Party. My friend Will is the chair. He's also the president of the California Young Dems, which I'm on the board with him of as well. And most of our board members of the county party are Young Dems, which our organization is those under the age of 35. So that's been like a really big thing that we've all kind of worked on in San Diego, and I know has been the case like throughout the state too, is trying to get more people of like our generation and younger generations kind of more, so that we have our voices heard more in those like decision making. So that's something that I'm pretty proud of too.
Yeah, and that's super important is getting younger people involved and
Mm-hmm.
like knowledgeable about it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I plan to continue doing. So I'm
Yeah,
pretty
that's
happy with that.
awesome. That's definitely something to be proud of. And especially like we're still young too, so for you to be so young and be involved in like such an important part of our community is really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it.
I bet you're doing big things and there's still so much to come, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I don't like to make plans, but
Oh, well, it seems to be working, the not making plans though, because look where you're at.
that is true. Actually, speaking of that, last year in 2020, I ran for Central Committee, which is an elected position. That's like the governing board of the San Diego County Democratic Party. And they have this, across the state, and I lost, right? So it
Hmm.
was kind of, a little demoralizing. But then that was in March 2020. And then in November, some folks encouraged me to run for this position, which is the director of clubs. And I got elected unanimously, and now I'm on the executive board. So it's like, well, I lost my election, but here I am.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
awesome.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I kind of just, things work out. You kind of just fall into things sometimes. But I was involved with a lot of clubs. Like, one of my roles within the Young Dems was to help, clubs with, starting up, getting more people involved and all that stuff. So it just kind of made sense when people are saying, like, you should do this for the party. So I'm all right, well, here I go.
That's so cool that it worked out and everything, though. I mean, it's like you're destined to be in this position. Everything was telling you so.
I just had to lose an election first.
Oh, that's okay. There'll be more, I'm sure.
Yes. Hopefully not too many of the losing ones, but
yeah, not too many losing ones for sure. I'll keep your name, or I'll keep an eye out for your name on the next ballot, though.
Thanks,
that comes around.
Yeah. It's every 4 years, so it will be a little bit before I have to think about that again. But
yeah, don't stress about it now.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening. Stay connected with us by following Go Ahead Tell Me and Della Quentame on social media or joining our weekly newsletter. Talk soon.